Okay, ladies and gentlemen, it's early. It's 5:17 a.m. and I am headed out of town to travel to Oregon for the 4th of July, which is exciting. But I cannot stop thinking about yesterday and what happened yesterday with our court system. So, one judge ruled that Britney Spears' dad would not be removed as her conservator, even after all of the things that she said earlier in the week that we talked about, even after all of my alleged constitutional violations of her freedom of speech and assembly and the right to marry and all of the things that I chatted about in our last Facebook Live. And then I'm working yesterday, and many of you are probably getting the same pop-ups that say Bill Cosby's freed, his conviction's overturned. It's not even that he's like released temporarily, his conviction is overturned. And people are wondering, how can this be? How can this miscarriage of justice be fair? How can this happen in our justice system? So I want to talk about that for a minute. The issue with Britney and Bill Cosby is process, and the legal system values process or procedure over results in any individual case. Why is that? Well, the thinking is that if the system is fair for everyone, if it's fair and it's applied uniformly, then you'll get better results on a macro level. So most people. So that is why if a police officer breaks into your house and finds all this evidence of crime, it cannot be used because the right of privacy was violated. The Fourth Amendment right to be free of search and seizure was violated. And the process must be applied uniformly. How does that apply to Bill Cosby? Well, turns out that Bill Cosby has been accused publicly by dozens of women of sexual assault. And by the time prosecutors decided they were interested in prosecuting, and I want to talk about the way that works. So somebody reports a crime to the police either determine whether or not to arrest or not, whether or not they have enough information to arrest someone, and then the prosecution's office decides whether or not they have enough evidence to prosecute a crime. They get to choose whether or not they prosecute a crime, which we're going to get to later. But with Bill Cosby, by the time prosecutors got around to charging him, there was only one sexual assault victim that had come forward publicly that was in the 12 years statute of limitations. What is the statute of limitations? It is the period of time after which something occurs that you're allowed to sue. So if you get into a bar fight at 18 and somebody wants to come sue you for it at 30, the statute of limitations is run and you can't do it. And the cops can't come charge you because the statute of limitations is run. So with Bill Cosby, the statute of limitations had run on all but one by the time prosecutors decided to charge him. And there were two trials against him, and he was ultimately convicted. And one of the reasons he was convicted was because a lot of his past victims were allowed to testify so that prosecutors could establish a pattern of sexual molestation of women. Turns out that the last victim, the one who he was charged for, had already previously sued Bill Cosby in a civil lawsuit, suing him for money. So the prosecutors and the government can convict you of a crime and send you to jail, but as a victim of an assault or a crime, you are allowed to sue someone privately and get money. And she did. She sued him, and there was a confidential settlement agreement. But part of that agreement was a non-prosecution deal. So the prosecutors in Philadelphia said, we won't charge you criminally if you agree to testify in your civil case. The reason is you have this Fifth Amendment right not to incriminate yourself. You cannot be made to testify in any deposition, in any court hearing, in any type of official swearing capacity. You cannot be made to testify if doing so would force you to incriminate yourself, because you have a right not to incriminate yourself to the government. So the prosecution struck this deal a long time ago that said, no, Bill, you have to testify in your civil suit. She gets to call you as a witness, and we won't prosecute you. And that is a binding agreement. That's a binding agreement. And that is why he is out. That is why he is out, because the process was broken. The deal was made. It must be followed. And that to the system is more important than whether or not he should rot in jail. Let's talk about Britney. Britney has not asked through her attorneys properly to end the conservatorship. The hearing that she had earlier in the week that she finally decided to come out and talk about was about her father as conservator only. And she said she wanted her dad removed as conservator, but she also said a lot of other things, mostly around how she wanted her conservatorship to end. She has to follow the process. If you want the conservatorship to end, you have to petition the court to end the conservatorship. This happens in family court all the time, where people are like, but this is not fair. The outcome is wrong. This is why attorneys get paid what they do and are valuable, because we understand the process and we know the system. And if you do not work within the system, you will not get the results you want in a justice court. Okay, fine. All right. So that's part one. We can stop there. We can say that everybody understands that. Okay, fine. The process has to be followed. But wait a minute. Why wasn't Bill Cosby charged earlier? Is that fair? Why is it that Britney is under conservatorship, but many other stars aren't? Does it have anything to do with the fact that she's a woman? Probably. Does it have anything to do with the fact that Bill Cosby is rich and famous, that he wasn't prosecuted? Probably. So is our process really fair? Our process will only be fair if it is applied uniformly. Our process will only be fair if we look on a macro level, if we look at statistics of all of the convictions, of all of the prosecutions, and we find that criminal sentencing for Black Americans is the exact same as it is for white Americans and Hispanics and Asians. And we all have our own biases, and institutions have their biases. Institutions are made up of individuals, and collectively individuals like rich and powerful and famous people. And so those people get off the hook. They get a free pass. We need to look at the convictions and figure out, are women sentenced for the same crimes longer than men? I believe they are. Are Blacks sentenced for the same crimes longer than whites? They are. Are they institutionally charged more often? Yes. Are women institutionally charged more often? Yes, especially for even things like child abuse allegations. So while we maybe collectively as a group can agree that the process being applied uniformly matters, the right to not have police officers enter your house and take evidence against you without a warrant and then charge you, we all understand that. We all understand that it needs to be fair. But it is time for us to look at a very macro level at data and figure out, is our beloved process working? Is it applying and doling out justice in a way that is fair? Or do poor people end up in jail longer and more often? We know the answer is yes. And if you look at the statistics, you'll find that there's huge racial disparities as well, and gender disparities. And that shouldn't be okay with us, because that's not fair. So yes, you can be outraged that Bill Cosby is walking free because he wasn't charged. Not only was this violation made, yes, fine, he made a deal on this one, woman, but why wasn't he charged with the dozens of other women who had come forward? Why did the state wait until there was only one victim left? And there are probably other victims out there, but the guy's 83 now, so maybe he slowed down with his behavior with regards to molesting women. And as far as Britney goes, She just needs to follow the process. And there's lots of lawyers out there thinking about, filing a writ of habeas corpus, which means free the body. There's a lot of different legal tools that she has available to, which we talked about at the last Facebook Live. But for now, that's all I've got. I think we all have a responsibility to make sure that our justice system is working fairly. And that means looking at data and making sure that it's applied uniformly. That's all for now. We'll talk to you soon. Bye.